And welcome to the Pitchline Chronicles, where fans become family. I'm Uncle Tats. I'm here with Rob, Donald, and joining us today is our good friend Spencer. And we hope that everybody did enjoy their holiday. And if you are celebrating Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah to you during these days. But I got to start off. I want to throw it to Spencer real quick. He wanted to come on and share some thoughts as the baseball world is still kind of coping with the loss of one of its greats. And he wanted to share a couple of stories about Rickey Henderson. So, Spencer, let's say what we've got to say about Rickey and throw it to you.
Good morning, Rob. Good morning, Don. Good morning, Bobby. Thanks for having me on today. Good morning, everybody in the chat. Start your day with the Pinstripe Chronicles. I hope you can see that it's as good as caffeine. And thank you for having me on. Before I get into that, I want to congratulate you guys on eclipsing 1,000 subscribers. That is no small accomplishment. It's big. The show is going in the right direction. It'll be 2,000 sooner than later. And having seen this podcast develop from the beginning, it really is a privilege to see it evolve and to see it grow. And I'm really happy for you guys. I'm genuinely and sincerely happy for you guys. And as I always say, if I could be like a small ice chip on the furthest orbit of the Pinstripe Chronicles universe, it's good enough for me. Really is. So thank you and congratulations, guys.
Spencer, we've always appreciated the support and all the work you do with us behind the scenes, with phone calls, obviously the trivia for the Upper Deck show.
Sure.
So you're a bigger part of this as anybody. But there was some breaking news that came out as we were getting ready for the show, and it seems that Gleyber Torres has found a 1-year deal. I thought it was 2, but it seems to be 1, with the Detroit Tigers. So as we were trying to, put the show together, depending on if we were going to be targeting third or second base, it seems that a second baseman has found a new home that we've been able to watch for a while. Some good, some bad, some frustrating. But he had a tremendous postseason. Donald, I'll throw it to you first. How's it, seeing that Gleyber was able to has found a home, and my first reaction was I think he's actually going to strive under the management of AJ Hinch with Detroit. Was this the best move that he could make? Was not only just to get out of New York, but actually get under a manager that can probably really hone in on his talent?
Well, you see, it's actually a pretty nuanced debate with regards to Gleyber Torres, because we're talking about a potential superstar. He was developing into a potential superstar, and then for whatever reason, possibly his fault, possibly Yankee management fault, it hasn't worked out that way. Certainly, the Yankees put him in every position to succeed in this past year, and until the playoffs, he had his worst year, and it's really affected his market value, and it probably affected the Yankees' interest in bringing him back. If you look at his Baseball Savant page, it was dreadful. Base running metrics were terrible. His fielding metrics were terrible, and his offensive metrics were actually comparably terrible. But I'll tell you what, he had one hell of an October, and if there's one way to say goodbye to the Yankees, is to have a strong October, and he did. And so, actually, you know what? I'm going to look back fairly fondly on Gleyber Torres. It was a missed opportunity, though, because I'll tell you what, there was potential there for him to be a superstar, and it didn't happen. I think that we've talked about this as a podcast numerous times, but now we've got a fairly bigger platform. We can say the same thing. His move to shortstop set him back, and it really affected his taking the next level. Now, that was on the Yankees for doing that. But it's also partially on him, too, because the Yankees moved him back to second base, and he didn't seem to get past the fact that he was messed around a little bit. Now, there were certain things that the Yankees shouldn't have done. They shouldn't have made him such a heavily pull hitter. He's so much better when he's hitting to right center. That's when he's at his best. But we started to see the best of Gleyber Torres in October, and he actually will be a miss of considering what we had in October. So he was an important player. He was very durable, and I don't know if it's the best move for him because he didn't want to get out of New York. He wanted to stay here. He loved the Yankees. He loved the Yankees. So I think he's going to be disappointed that that it didn't work out. I'd be very interested to look at the dollars because I'm obviously through last year I was like pretty open to trading him, but what he gave you in October is something that's fairly valuable. He gave you on base percentage. He gave you deep counts. And he set the table for Soto and Judge and Stanton. And I don't know if we have that right now looking at this batting lineup. So the Yankees still have some work to do. Obviously, we're going to get into that as the podcast goes on. Brad reports it's $15 million for 1 year Gleyber. It's actually a fairly good deal for Gleyber because Gleyber could have a strong year and then reset his market going into next free agency next year. And then we'll see where we're at. Maybe he absolutely crushes it. Maybe he kills it, and the Yankees are like, "Oh shit, we should have let you go. You can come back next year." Who knows? But I'm rooting for him. I hope he has a good year. He's a good dude. He worked incredibly hard. He tried incredibly hard. He just had these lapses, and that's what drove me insane about him. He just had these lapses. It was these mental lapses, and he just kept having them, and eventually, it got to the point where Aaron Boone, who's as laid back a manager as possible to get in the majors, even benched him and publicly. And by the way, it helped him because after that, he was a different player. So maybe the Yankees should have done that a hell of a lot earlier, and you maybe have gotten a better Gleyber Torres, and maybe you wouldn't have had to have gone to the position where you let him go for nothing. So I've got mixed feelings towards it. I mean, it's probably the best that the Yankees let him go, but it was a missed opportunity because that guy had a potential to be a superstar. He had that 1 year where he had like mid-30, 30-plus home runs, and he looked like he was everything, and it just didn't happen, which is a shame. It's a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Rob?
Can you guys hear me all right? Because I think my connection was going.
You're good, bro. You're good, man. You're good, brother.
Yeah, best of luck to him. I'm not going to really miss him. It's a shame it didn't work out, but I see a lot of all of a sudden everyone's going to miss him when during the season we were waiting for the day he was gone. So I best of luck. Thought he would get a multi-year deal, but only 1 year kind of tells you the story about how teams felt about him. He had a good postseason, but overall his numbers weren't great. So I love Gleyber, don't get me wrong, but anyone who thought the Yankees were going to bring him back clearly weren't reading the tea leaves. They tried to trade him 3 straight seasons. They didn't give him a qualifying offer. He was never coming back. So hopefully he has a good year in Detroit and he can get himself some more money next offseason. But it's a shame it didn't work out the way it could have because he could have been a superstar. He was a multi-time All-Star, but he had like 38 home runs that 1 year. He was having a great start to his career, but that move to shortstop screwed him. The constant trade rumors screwed him. He wanted to be a Yankee, but the Yankees didn't want him to be a Yankee. And that's just really the end of it. I hope he does well, but we needed an upgrade from Gleyber Torres, and hopefully they find one.
Yeah, I mean, I have no ill will towards him at all. I hope he does well. I'm glad that he did find somewhere to go, but I think the sentiment with the fans is more because he was in that, we traded him as when he was a prospect and developed him, and we got, he was part of that transition of the next, baby bombers. That group was called with Frazier and Greg Byrne, Sanchez, like that. That was the group that was supposed to, be that next dynamic, successful team. and it just never came to fruition for him, and it sucked. And to Donald's point, I think that we said it on this channel a lot. That year they moved him to shortstop, I think completely derailed him. I think it shattered his confidence, and he just never knew where he was supposed to be, as far as where he fit into the Yankee mold, and kept trying to reinvent himself with it, whether it was his swing, his lack of concentration was a big part of it. Also, we're not going to miss the blunders on the bases, the misplays on the field. But what he gave this postseason is kind of you always remember it's what have you done for me lately? Mentality in New York. And I think the way he went out for us, that you have to appreciate what he was able to do. The juice ball era comment was that was a big part of it. I can still remember, the radio call in Baltimore. Just stop pitching to him. So he was he was a good Yankee. He wasn't a great enough Yankee to get a contract, but he was good. He just never found his place. And I think getting out of the New York atmosphere is going to serve him very well.
Well, I think with Gleyber Torres, we squeeze all of the juice out of the Gleyber Torres orange that can be squeezed out of it. Any player can make mistakes. It can happen to anybody. But with Gleyber Torres, the mistakes happened at a frequency that I think was just too much for the Yankees and too much for Yankee fans. Furthermore, it was the nature of his mistakes. His mistakes were always mental, and his mistakes were almost on a little league level. They would make you groan. They would make you think, how could you make such a stupid mistake like that? Clearly, his batting average and the way that he rejuvenated himself or redeemed himself in August after he was pulled out of the game the second time. Remember, it was the second time that he was pulled out of a game for not running on the bases. He certainly demonstrated the potential that he had. But, and I said this on this program, I said that somewhere during the playoffs, Gleyber Torres is going to make an error at an inopportune time. I'm not necessarily predicting that it will cost the Yankees a game, but it's going to definitely put them in a precarious situation. And you guys all remember what happened in the World Series when he let that throw from Soto get by him. I forget which game that was in, but that was what I was talking about. So imagine this. Imagine that the Yankees signed Gleyber Torres, and imagine it's opening day 2025, and they're playing the game, and Gleyber makes an error, whatever it may be, a base running error, a fielding error. And we all sit back and we think, my God, how many more years of this do we have to deal with? Gleyber is in his late 20s. At some point, you just have to let players go. For me, I'm really at peace of mind with letting Gleyber go. He served us well. He did well for the Yankees. I wish him a lot of luck. The best thing that he can do is prove to the Yankees and to the Yankees fans that we made a mistake. And I think he'll do that. I think he's going to do great. He's going to be one of the veteran players on the Tigers. They have a chance at reaching the playoffs again. They're an exciting team to be on. I'm sure he's going to be happy about growing his facial hair in. I'm sure he'll be happy about that. But even if he hits 356 and 35 home runs and gets 90 or 100 RBIs, I'm okay with letting him go because having him return at the risk of those mental errors happening again, I myself just could not take that anymore. I'm okay with moving on.
Yep. And as we've been discussing this, I mean, the chat has been, putting their opinions in. I just want to say good morning and what's up to everybody in the chat. Always appreciate you guys tuning in and hanging out with us in the mornings. Everybody watching on X and Facebook, good morning to you guys as well. Make sure you come over, hit that sub button, hit that like button, and let's share this out. Let's continue to grow this family. It is getting bigger by the day, and we are all for it. Now,
I think that I do think that the fact that Boone had to publicly bench him had an effect on his market value because, the league knows that Aaron Boone is not the type of manager that's going to be doing that kind of thing. And so for him to having to, make that statement was an issue. The fact that the Yankees didn't even risk putting a qualifying offer out there in case that he'd pick it up really says it all. But I don't think we should be celebrating him leaving. It's still kind of a missed opportunity, and it is what it is. I mean, the whole thing about the juice balls, yeah, that certainly had a factor in it. But the Yankees also made him a pull heavy hitter when I don't think he was a pull hitter. I don't think it sacrificed 70 points on his batting average when he's someone that could actually give you a 290 batting average. But the Yankees really, I keep going into this, but Mike Fishman is a problem of the Yankee organization. You can't always just blame it on the player. The Yankees just didn't really develop him as well as they should have, and Mike Fishman had a lot to do with it. That guy is a moron, and make no mistake about it, Mike Fishman is a complete and utter imbecile. And he had Gary Sanchez and Gleyber Torres, and I know people laugh at Gary Sanchez and stuff now, but I'll tell you what, he was a hell of a player coming up, and he was a hell of a player for the Yankees for the first couple of years that he was a Yankee in the bigs, and Mike Fishman got his hands involved in it and destroyed him as best he possibly could. Made him shelve himself defensively and offensively. Again, messed with his swing, made him a pull hitter when he actually, and we've got evidence, video evidence of it when we interviewed the world's first DH, Ron Blomberg. He said that Gary Sanchez was the best hitter he'd seen because he could hit to all fields. Mike Fishman gets involved and makes him a pull hitter, and it takes away 70 points of his batting average. Yay, and then suddenly became a home run or nothing guy. Now, I'm not going to excuse the fact that Gary Sanchez had a ton of mental errors, just like Gleyber Torres, so it wasn't all on Mike Fishman, but he had a lot to do with it. So, Blaze says it's not Fishman's fault, it's coach's fault. Yeah, but it is an organizational philosophy to listen to the analytics and make the analytics the big thing. And Fishman has a big role to do with a lot of these things. He is an issue, guys. He really is. He is not a smart guy. And once again, it's another prospect down the drain because of.
Yeah, you think back to that 2018 season. I don't mean to cut you off, Donald, but it's like what you're talking about. You're so right about that. Remember back in 2018 when him and Miguel, I forgot his last name, the third baseman, but both of those guys were competing.
Oh, Andujar.
As possible rookies of the year. When we got Gleyber Torres, and he had that great season, you thought, wow, this is like an undiscovered treasure. I mean, how lucky are we? I mean, before he came up, Aaron Judge was the guy, and you were waiting for him to come up, and you knew he could do some great things. And even Gary Sanchez in his first couple of seasons, you thought, wow, this is amazing. The future is looking bright for the Yankees. But when we got Gleyber Torres, we thought, how did we strike gold? Like, you got a catcher, you got an outfielder, you got a third baseman, you got a shortstop. I mean, how lucky are we? We were really feeling good about the Yankees at that time. Definitely not exulting about his leaving, just sort of reconciling that this is the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I think that there's, him going to the Tigers also opens up, now that the Yankees need to figure out what they want to do for second base now that their second baseman is officially signed elsewhere. And that's really where I think the bulk of the conversation is going to lead, is really because we're still waiting for them to secure that final infield spot on the roster, whether it be second base or third base. There is a consensus that a lot of people want to move Jazz to second, and a lot of people want to move, keep Jazz at third. And which option benefits the Yankees better? When you hear guys like Bregman and Arenado still kind of in limbo with the Yankees. Does it seem like they're hesitant to sign them because they want to keep him at third, or can you see them ultimately moving him to second and signing one of these, getting one of these other guys? Rob, what do you think?
Well, if you want to listen to Jack Curry, he says we're not in on either one of them. So
yeah.
Then again, he also said we were going to get Christian Walker. So maybe something changes in the next few days. Maybe Bregman doesn't have a market in like a few weeks, and the Yankees can swoop in and get him for less than he wants right now. So that's an option, but they don't want to give up the qualifying offer stuff, not the luxury tax, international money and picks. So keep that in mind. I would take Bregman in a heartbeat. I would take at this point. I would take Arenado if the alternative is starting DJ LeMahieu. if it's DJ, I'm taking Arenado. But I think you have to go trade route. There's really no free agent out there that's worth the money besides Bregman, and the trade market's pretty it's pretty barren outside of maybe a few guys. Like Alec Boehm would be my top choice. Brandon Lau at second would be my top choice if they want to keep Jazz at third. So there's really only a couple options, unless the Padres make Arias available, but then his defense is so atrocious that do you want to go that route because they've been so heavy on run prevention? Do you want to get probably a worse defender at second base than Gleyber? Then you're going to run into the same issues. So it really, the good thing is Cashman still has plenty of time. There's like a month and a half till spring training, so there's plenty of time to make a decision here, but they got to move Stroman first before they make any other moves, and then I think they're going to make a decision. Luckily, the guys like Boehm and Lau don't make a lot of money. We'll see, but I think they have to get either one position, whether it's second or third. Luckily, Jazz was really good at third, so you can keep him there, but he's also really good at second. So if you get a third baseman, great, Jazz goes to second. If you get a second baseman, you can keep Jazz at third, and it's going to be okay. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see what they do. I'm just hoping that they play it smart, and they also don't try to sell us on DJ Lenotos to be our starting third baseman, because that would be the worst decision they can make. I'd rather them say we're going to give it to Peraza, but we've already seen they don't really trust him.
No. Yeah, Rob, to your point, you're echoing what my feeling is. I think the situation with Jazz, it really depends on the Yankees' next move. If they get a second baseman, you keep him at third. If they get a third baseman, you keep him at second. It's really as simple as that. I think you can be successful with either move, and we have that luxury right now. I agree with you about Bregman. I mean, like, they should get the salary down for him a little bit. I don't give a crap about all that 2017 Astros trash can stuff. That stuff is in the past, and if you're still harping on that, well, I don't really know what to tell you. Time to live in the now. But he would be a great player. Now, Bobby, I talked with you about Bregman. The only issue that we have with him is that he's going to want a little bit of a longer contract. So you have to accept that if we do sign him, he's going to be here when he's north of 35. So we know in our future that the Yankees are going to start looking like an older kind of creaky team, just the way they did back in 2012 and 2013, 2014. So you got to be ready for that. But I think the Yankees are also in a position where they want to win now, like really win now. Like they want to get back to the World Series next season, not in a few years. And I think you have a good chance at doing that with Bregman. And yes, Rob, I saw the same thing on Yankees Hot Soap with you. Jack Curry said, no way Arenado is coming here. So I agree with you. If Jack Curry says it ain't happening, it ain't happening. Could it happen? Yeah, but I think the chances of there being any type of change is not so good. I would also say I get a little uncomfortable when the Yankees make a decision, to pass on a player, and then all of a sudden they go back to that. I don't really feel comfortable with a move like that also. So if something happened and Arenado did come to the Yankees, I wouldn't be as enthusiastic about it today as I might have been a couple of weeks ago.
I mean, the big factor in this is that the Yankees are already on the $300 million tax threshold as we speak. Bearing in mind the moves that they've made already, they're already touching on 300, and Bregman's a commitment that's gonna be AAV wise. You're probably looking at 25, 27 million AAV. So, in order to do that, the Yankees have to work a lot off the books.
Yeah.
Stroman has to be traded, and there's not even a question about it. Marcus Stroman has to be traded, but you're not guaranteed to find a team that's going to eat all that money.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing here, because he has to be moved, and then the Yankees have to try and get under the luxury tax threshold enough in order for them to acquire a difference maker. They can sign somebody, but I keep seeing it. Look at that Yankee lineup. There is not that much on base percentage in this Yankee lineup. They need to acquire someone that can get on base. They need to acquire someone that can drive in runs. They need to acquire someone that's in their prime. Because we've just acquired Goldschmidt, who's 37. He has no upside. None. There's no more upside with Goldschmidt. You're just hoping that you can eke out a solid year out of him, like you did Matty Ice Carpenter. Something like that. If you can get that, you'd be delighted. But, I mean, 1 year deal, he's 37. So there's no upside there. And then Cody Bellinger, none of us on this panel knows what we're going to get from Cody Bellinger. We all support the move. It's a good move. But if you look at his career, either side of his best year in a while, which was 2 years ago, either side of it, he had down years. So he's one of those guys where he's going to have a good year, then he's going to have a horrible year, then he's going to have a good year, then he's going to have a horrible year. So if you're following the trend, he's due to have a good year this year, but there's every chance he's going to have a horrible year because he's one of those guys that has these up and down runs. So none of us know what we're going to get from Cody Bellinger. So for me, honestly, I think the Yankees need to acquire a quality third baseman. Because again, look at that infield. The biggest issue last year was our infield defense, and we haven't really addressed the infield defense. Goldschmidt is okay, but he's not a Gold Glove first baseman. Not metrically now. He might have been in the past, but his metrics weren't good last year. If you look at Daniel Lowe, his metrics were off the chart as a defensive first baseman. He would have fixed a lot of issues, and he would have been cheaper than Goldschmidt. And he statistically, in terms of the Baseball Savant page, had a phenomenally better year than Goldschmidt. So it feels like a miss there because Goldschmidt would have gotten you that defense. So now we don't really have that. Walker would have gotten you that defense. We don't really have that. So Goldschmidt is a league average first baseman. Okay? So then you're looking at the rest of this infield. We got Jazz, who's up in the air. We don't know whether he's playing third or second. I think he's best at second base. That's his natural position. So I think he needs to be at second base. You go Volpe at short. He's fine. Third base, I think we need a third baseman. And I agree with Rob. I think Bregman is the one. But how are the Yankees going to move enough money in order to afford him? One. And two, the Yankees really don't want to give up international money. And they really don't want to give up potential draft picks for big free agent signings anymore because you're sitting on a potential game-changing international free agent by the name of Sasaki, and he has a lot to do with this. So I think the Yankees are out on Bregman. I really wish the Yankees prioritized Bregman, to be honest. I would have prioritized him before taking on the money of Cody Bellinger and stuff like that, or Goldschmidt. I would have prioritized Bregman because I think we really needed a quality Gold Glove third baseman that can drive in 90 RBIs and give you 20 plus home runs in the infield. I think we missed that boat. But it is what it is. I think what the Yankees are going to do is I think they're going to wait to see if Sasaki signs. If Sasaki signs, great. If he doesn't, pivot. But if he does sign, that makes Clark Schmidt expendable. And then you can maybe use Clark Schmidt as part of a package for a third baseman that's a game changer. But what that third baseman is, that's anyone's guess. I would say Baum is probably the best one. I think Baum's probably the best way you go with that. He'd be cheaper, and he's going to give you 90 RBIs, and he's going to play you decent third base. but the Yankees absolutely need to address the infield. It cannot be DJ Le Clubfoot. It cannot be DJ Le Clubfoot. We move on from DJ Le Clubfoot. Oswaldo Cabrera is a good player, but he's not an everyday player. He is a backup infielder. Absolutely, that you can't rely on those two guys. I'm sorry, you can't. I love Peraza. The Yankees don't love Peraza. So the Yankees need to go outside the organization and acquire a big-time third baseman. And they need to start giving Aaron Judge some support, man. Because I'm looking at this lineup, and there's not much protection for Aaron Judge outside Big G.
No, I think the biggest, it almost seems that the third base position would be the easiest slot to fill over second, based on the players that are available. But I know, Rob has been, asking about Bregman. He's got it under his thing. Bregman, please. But with the international money is a big deal. And Ken Claus strikes again. Ken gifting another membership. Ken, you are the GOAT. Appreciate you 100%. But Rob, I want to get your take on this with with third base. I know Bregman's the ask, but if they didn't want to give up the international money for Walker, why would they give it for Bregman?
Well, Ken strikes again, his second gifted membership, so thank you again, Ken. That's a good question. Maybe they decide to change up and just go, look, Bregman's probably more of a... I think they were always trying to get Goldschmidt, honestly, because he wanted to be a Yankee, apparently. He took less money to come to the Yankees. I think they were always going to target him. They were always going after a one-year thing. Maybe because third base is such a need right now that they are willing to. And again, if Bregman's, I think it's agent's Boris, right? So what if it's another Bellinger situation where they wait so long and they have to take like a 1 year with an option, or something like Bellinger took with a 3-year deal with options after each year. So if it comes to that, maybe they bite the bullet, but I don't think they will. I'm not saying they're gonna go do it, but that isn't really. Third base could be a need depending on what they want to do with Jazz. Li, I don't. Every time we say something, you got to go and disagree with it. If they want to keep Jazz at second, they can sign a third baseman, or if they want to keep Jazz at third, they can sign a second baseman. They have options there because Jazz is good at both positions. That's the luxury that we have here because Jazz was actually pretty good at third, despite the fact that he was learning on the fly. I love his arm at third base. If they want to keep him there, fine, but go get a second baseman. If you want to move Jazz to second, go get a third baseman. It's not rocket science. You have a really good player in Jazz Chisholm for another couple of years that can play multiple infield positions. Utilize that. So if you can go get Alec Boehm, move Jazz to second. If you want to go get Brandon Lau, keep Jazz at third. I'm fine with either choice there. I'm not saying I would have preferred him at his natural position, but he actually looked really good at third base. Metrically, he actually graded pretty well. And his arm is an absolute cannon, so that helps. Plus, you got a veteran at first base now that you really have to worry about his arm being a factor, the guy dropping something. Like, if he had Ben Rice at first, I'd be a little bit hesitant to put Jazz at third. But Goldschmidt's a veteran, and he's able to handle those freaking rocket throws from Arenado, so I think he'll be fine with Jazz. It just depends on what route they go. And again, the good thing is they have time. They've attacked pretty much all of their needs except for this infield position and the bullpen, the lefties of the bullpen, by the way. And they have a good month and a half to do it. So if it's Boehm, great. If it's Lau, great. If it's none of those guys, then we're looking at the battle of Vivas, Peraza, DJ, and Cabrera. And I don't know if anyone else really want to go that route. I certainly don't want to go the DJ route. But in terms of the original question, if the price comes down, they might bite because at that point, in a month from now, Sasaki will be a Dodger. And then we'll probably be like, all right, well, we're not going to use this money for anybody else in this class. Why don't we just go sign Bregman?
Mm-hmm. Let's hope that he isn't gone by the time we get to that stage.
Right.
Because it's still a couple of weeks away. Don't we find out like January 15th, isn't that? Round about the time where we find out about Sasaki?
Yeah, right around that time. So within, a little over 2 weeks. Just under 3 weeks, we'll know.
A lot can change in 2-3 weeks. people could start dropping off the board. You have to think that the Yankees' hesitance to give up the draft picks and international money makes me think that the Yankees have every chance of getting Sasaki, and they want to be in that position to get him. But the first things first, they have to move Stroman's contract, and that will not be easy. There's not a lot of teams that are willing to take on that contract, so that's the big one. Graham Highlander is asking if the Yankees are just going to write it out now and then just wait till the trade deadline. It wouldn't be the first time, but it would be a mistake. The Yankees shouldn't be doing that. They've been doing that far too often, just leaving positions, hoping that the player that they want is going to become available at the trade deadline. It doesn't work out that way. They need to have a plan in place.
Yep. Spencer, what do you think about the third base, second base scenario?
Well, I'm with you guys. I think, or with Rob at least, I think that Bregman would be the guy to go after. I like how you mentioned Alec Bohm, and forgive me, I'm going to do this because you guys have given me an opportunity, Rob and Donald. Alec Bohm is a player who plays for a different team, and he's just, for whatever reason, it's one of those guys that you just sort of fancy and would wish that they were on your team. A number of years ago, it was Andrew McCutchen. When we got him from the Pirates, we brought him to the Yankees. I thought, wow, that was a guy that I wanted to see on my team, and he came to play on my team. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I do want to sort of pivot just a little bit. Forgive me for doing so, but I wanted to pay tribute to number 24, who passed away this past Saturday, last week, Rickey Henderson. And the reason why it's important for me is because Rickey was amongst the players who was in the first class of players when I became a fan in 1979. I think back to when I started collecting baseball cards, and he was one of the 3 prospects on the card that he was featured on. And I remember taking a liking to him right away. And then with the 1980 collection, the baseball card features, I think, just a picture of him. I think it's without his hat. It's a nice clear shot. But when you got the card, and when I turned it back and I looked at his stats, and I saw that his stats for stolen bases was 100, that really jumped out at me. And it made such an impression on me as a kid. And as a kid, one of the things that you knew was the record for stolen bases was a little over 900 by Lou Brock, and stolen bases in a season was also by Lou Brock, 118 steals. When Rickey came to the Yankees, I mean, that was magical to me. That was like if we were to get Alec Bohm, or like when we got Andrew McCutchen. Other players around that time also. Dave Parker was a guy that I took a liking to. Ken Singleton was a guy I liked. I was really happy when Ken Singleton joined the Yankees broadcast crew. But I was in attendance for many of Rickey Henderson's games as a Yankee. The one game that really stands out to me was in 1986 when the Yankees were playing a day game versus the Angels. My objective for going to the Angels game was to see Reggie Jackson. It had been years since I'd seen him play for the Yankees, and I finally got a chance to see him. But in that game, Rickey led off the game with one of his trademark leadoff home runs. And you really started to appreciate how much power that he had. I think when he retired, he only had 298 home runs. And I don't know why I qualified it with only, but it was pretty remarkable. He could have hit a lot more if he wanted to. Later, I was fortunate to catch Rickey when I was an adult, and he played minor league baseball for the Newark Bears. I caught him in a game about a week or not too long before he was sent to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And when I was at that game, I realized that Rickey Henderson was one of these players who I saw with the eyes of a youngster, and I saw him through the eyes of an adult. And I think what you understand, what you realize is that, as you go through life, and Bob Costas, who some of us like and some of us don't like, but a point that he made is, as you go through life, you think of the things that you've loved, all your life, and at certain points in your life. And Rickey Henderson, was one of those guys. He's always been there. I've always known a world with Rickey Henderson. I was always impressed with how he helped out teams wherever he went. Even though he played for so many teams, the Brewers, the Padres, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, I still feel that the Yankees are one of his prime teams. And so when I wear this jersey as I'm watching my games, it's not for Gary Sanchez. It's not for Matt Carpenter. I really wear that, and I think of Rickey Henderson when I put it on. I'm very, very sad that he's gone. That's a loss that really gets to me. I'm mournful about it. Could even cry about it. But he had a great career, and I think it's okay for Yankee fans to remember him as a Yankee. Some of his best years were definitely as a Yankee. And one thing that doesn't really get talked about a lot also was his famous snatch catch. It was always fun watching him do that motion with his glove when he would catch the ball. So, beyond his steals and his power and what he did for teams, he was just he was a great player. And of course, he was also known for his Rickey Henderson isms. Rickey would always talk about himself in the third person, as we know, and that was something I really enjoyed. I am going to miss him, but I'm so happy that he was a Yankee. And if you ever wear the number 24 is for Rickey Henderson. It's unfortunate that his name and number isn't retired in Monument Park. I get why it isn't. I could even object to it being done so because he played a short career with the Yankees. But if it was the other way around, it would definitely be merited. I really appreciate you letting me talk about Henderson for this segment of the show.
No, definitely. No, but I think that it's if he had just a few more years, maybe the Monument Park discussion comes into play. But no, it was too short.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he would have been great as a lifetime Yankee. But in this day and age, it's kind of that those are the that now I think is a record that won't be beat.
Yeah.
Or is not going to be looked at the same because of some of the rule changes, and we could do a whole other show about that. I don't want to go too off topic.
Exactly.
But I do want to get do you think that there are better off signing a third baseman or just keeping Jazz there and going second base?
At this point, I haven't given up. Yeah, I was just going to say I haven't given up on the Bregman deal. That seems to have slowed down a little bit. I gather they would be negotiating between how much the Yankees will pay and how much the he's a free agent. Forgive me. So it would be like what Scott Boras is trying to get for him now. And I think we're at the point also where because of the other signings, teams can be more selective, with the contracts that they will give free agents depending on who the free agent is. So I think that's why things have kind of slowed down a little bit now with Bregman, with Arenado, with Pete Alonso. So this could be a while before we get somebody there.
Well, the thing with Bregman is what I think. First of all, his asking price was through the roof, so that's going to deter teams. His agent's an asshole. That's also going to deter teams. And he's a merchant of his ballpark. Apparently, he benefits a lot from that ballpark in Houston. So, Heyman had an article out, I think yesterday or the day before. They said the Yankees people love Alex Bregman, but they don't know if he's such a good fit for Yankee Stadium. So that could be also the international money and draft pick stuff as well. But the Yankees really like Bregman. So that's why I think if it comes to a point where his price comes down, similar to what happened with Bellinger 2 years ago, maybe they swoop back in. Because if it's another month from now and he's still a free agent, Sasaki will be signed somewhere. And if he's not a Yankee, then the Yankees can maybe be like, all right, screw it. We got to go get this guy because we can get him for cheaper. I don't know if Bo Bichette's available, 19 con man. If he is, he'd probably come a little bit cheaper than he would a few years ago because he's coming off of a bad year. But would Toronto trade with us? There's a question there. I don't know. We're only going off of names that we've heard are available. Because if that's the case, then go get Ketel Marte. That's a name that's been brought up a couple of times in the chat. But I'm just trying to think of who would be realistically available. I think at the end of the day, they're going to end up calling up St. Louis and seeing what, because if they're going to trade him, he's only got a couple options. He has a no trade clause. He has a list of teams. Realistically, it's the Yankees and maybe the Mets that would give him best chance to win out of the list. He's not, and we're not even on his list apparently. But because we have Goldschmidt now, maybe he would take a trade to the Yankees. Well, everything's a wait and see game, and I think that's what Cashman excels at some point is when he gets his price. When he gets his price, then that's when he's going to strike on a deal. So if Bregman's asking price comes down in another month and he's still available, then maybe the Yankees go get him, depending on what happens with Sasaki. If the Cardinals say, look, he's willing to waive his no trade clause, how much he probably wants the Cardinals to eat more money. There's so many things going on there with the Arenado stuff. And then, of course, there's simply see what the Phillies would want for Alec Bohm. And LI, we're not trying to overhype him, but he's also like a 90 RBI bat that we don't have in our lineup right now. So that's why we're talking about him. It's a pretty simple concept that you don't seem to understand every single time we talk about these things, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Alec Bohm, we're talking about a 28-year-old who hit 97 RBIs last year and bat 280.
Yeah.
Who in his lineup is batting 280 and is driving in 90 RBIs? How many?
One.
I mean, not even a handful. Literally one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not gonna dismiss that. I mean, yeah, he's not great defensively, but he's not like horrible defensively. He's not like unusable. He's average to slightly below average defensively, but offensively, he's combined with 194 RBIs over his last two seasons. 194 RBIs in his last two seasons, and he's under 30. And I don't mind that because that means there's some upside there. It wouldn't be a massive commitment. Just see how it goes. But the way the Phillies are with Bohm is they're not making him available. He's not available in the trade market, but they're also not invested in him, which says to me that the Yankees could get him at if they offered a decent prospect. A significant prospect. So let's say that Sasaki signs for the Yankees. Then that opens up Clark Schmidt. I would trade Clark Schmidt for Bohm. I would. Because I like Schmidt a lot, but you're getting an RBI machine that can protect this lineup, and we need that more than a sixth starter if we get Sasaki. If we don't get Sasaki, then we have to pivot and think of something else. We have to go another route. I don't think Arenado is the route that I want to go. I think Bregman is the route I want to go. But again, we need to somehow free up around about $25 million off our payroll. And good luck with that. Because it's not going to be easy.
I was just
not going to be easy.
Cut off, but I'm so you guys bring up something that I think we keep overlooking also. The thing about Bregman and the thing about Alec Bohm. And I think it applies more to Bregman. Bregman, I don't know what the story is that John Heyman wrote about, Yankee Stadium and hitting. I think that's overthinking it. I think you put him in any stadium, the guy is going to be able to hit. But what I like about Bregman also is that he's played in the World Series. He's played in the postseason in Yankee Stadium. He's passed every test that you could ask a player to. And that's why I would feel okay with bringing Bregman in to the Yankees at this stage in his career. Yeah, like 4 years from now, he's going to be in his upper 30s. And at that point, you might be groaning about him being on the team. But for now, for where we are right now, yeah, he would be a guy you want to have on the team. World Series experience. He's won a World Series. Don't remind me about that trash can crap. That's crap. That's in the past already. Forget about it. Do you want to win the World Series? Do you not want to win the World Series? And Alec Bohm, he's got playoff experience also. He's been in the World Series. He played against the Astros, ironically, in the series. So he has the acumen that you want in a player. It's more than just the stats. It's what's going to happen when you're on a big stage. And Philadelphia is a pretty tough stage to play in the postseason. Those are pretty tough fans to please out there. So from that perspective, that's why I like both those guys. I probably want Bregman more than I want Bohm, but I'd be happy with Bohm.
Graham Highland is that if you trade Schmidt and offload Stroman, what starter are you then going after? Well, we'd already have a five. We'd have Luis Gil, we'd have Garrett Cole, we'd have Rodon, and we'd have Max Fried. right off the top of our head, and you've basically got a set rotation already, and then you've got some prospects that you can use as 6 starters.
Well, also, Graham, he's saying if you get Sasaki, you can trade
Yeah.
Schmidt.
Yeah.
That's if you get Sasaki. The thing is, I don't think we're going to get him. But if you're talking about a non-Schmidt trade, then you're probably looking at the Spencer Jones of the world that you'd probably have to give up for Bohm. Because they did ask for Mason Miller. I think Brad just brought that up. They asked for Mason Miller for Alec Bohm, so it's not going to be an easy player to acquire, but he'd also be a huge addition. And I don't really care about the defense when it comes to that kind of a bat because
It's the bat
we need that bat. The infield defense is going to be better this year. If Jazz is at second, his natural position, Volpe's fine at shortstop, and Goldschmidt's much better than anything we put out there at first base last year. The infield defense will be a lot better. And it's not like Alec Bohm is metrically terrible. He actually graded out pretty well, outs above average. So if, a lot of people want to bring up, look at his Savant page, but then say his defense sucks. Well, his Savant page will tell you otherwise. His fielding value is like in like 90-something percentile. He was a 7 outs above average. So clearly there's something there. A lot of people look at his errors and they go, oh, he's terrible. But again, 2 of the last 3 Gold Glove winners at shortstop just had a ton of errors, and Pena for Houston and Volpe for us. So clearly errors are not the end-all, be-all when it comes to defense.
I'm quite sure if you ask Aaron,
there's never a player always makes an error. No player goes their career without making an error.
Yeah.
I don't harp on that too much.
I was just going to say, if you ask Aaron Nola and how he feels about Alec Bohm in his infield when he's pitching, I'm pretty sure Aaron Nola is going to say, yeah, I like Alex there. Big guy. He's a vacuum. He's good. He feels comfortable.
He's a good player. There's nothing wrong with him.
Yeah.
I mean, you have him for 2 years of control, which Cashman loves to get those kind of players that have an extra year.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen because the asking price is ridiculously high for him because he's a good player. It's not like they're trying to trade away this scrub. It's a 90 RBI, 25 home run plus bat with a solid defense, with a solid glove, I should say. That's a good player. Not going to be easy to acquire. Yeah. So again, your options are limited. Is Tampa Bay really putting Brandon Lau on the market? If they are,
that's the only other option
right.
that I can think of.
And then you're looking at like Brandon Rogers and I think some of the free agents like Polanco who aren't really upgrades. If that's the case, just let Vivas, Cabrera, and Peraza battle for second or third and make it a battle in the spring. But I wouldn't want to go that route because the Yankees need to go, one more big signing. One more bat, and I think this offseason's complete because the bullpen arms they can get Tim Hill and just call it an offseason. And I love the fact that they like Chafin because that was another one of Donald's suggestions, and I love that dude. I would take him in this bullpen in a heartbeat, but they can attack that in a little while. If they get one more bat, they're good. I think they're set, and that's why I really like the idea of Bregman because his gloves there. That's why I liked Walker so much. I warmed up to Walker. At first, I wanted nothing to do with it, but I'm like, the gloves there, the bat's there. If the asking price for Bregman comes down, the Yankees would be foolish to say no because of a couple of draft picks, especially if Sasaki goes elsewhere. That's the only reason they're holding on to the money right now is for Sasaki. If he goes to the Dodgers and Bregman's still available, I'm sorry, I can live without 2 college pitchers with a 6 ERA. I can live without it for 1 year.
Yeah. I mean, the other option, I don't know, it's just off in my head. I know Yandy Diaz is more of a first baseman now, but he has played third base in the past, and he rakes. He certainly raked in 2023. He still raked pretty decent last year, too.
Yeah.
Would you consider him?
I like his attitude, and he's confident. He puts fear in pitchers' minds, and he delivers in the postseason, and he can deliver in Yankee Stadium. He'd be fine with me. He's a guy, I would want that guy on my team, just the way he carries himself.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to anybody at this point that's going to come and help us win.
Please,
if they're a plus bat at this point, the thing is, like, you got to look at certain players and know that, like, Bohm's defense is not terrible, so that's why I'm like, get me that player. But Yandy Diaz at third is like that's a task. It's the same way with Arias at second. Like, that's why the Padres really don't have a place to put him. That's why they put him at first, because it's like, I see a lot of people that brought up Ha-Sung Kim. If he was healthy, I'd sign up for that in a heartbeat. He's not going to be ready till like mid-season. So that's a commitment you'd have to be like, all right, well, if we sign him, he's going to be ready, let's say June, July. Who's going to be playing second base for the first 3 months? That's where they're going to be like, well, we got DJ LeMahieu, and I want them to avoid that at all costs. I would, if Ha-Seong Kim was healthy, great. There's the other one from Korea. I think his name is Hae-Sung Kim, so that's going to get confusing for people, but he's still available. Maybe they go that route. He could be a cheap signing that could be a potential leadoff bat. So the options are there. It just depends on what the Yankees want to do. They have to get under. They have to trade Stroman first. And then I think you're going to, once they can find a partner for him, they might have to eat a few million or attach a prospect to get rid of his money. But which is why I don't know why they signed Grisham. Because now if you get rid of his money, there's an extra $5 million. That's why, and they signed a Brennan Davis to a minor league deal who plays all three positions anyway. He can be your fourth outfielder. I really don't understand why they gave Grisham a contract this year.
I think it's because
Grisham got signed because of his versatility of the outfield.
Yeah, but he played one position.
It was just an insurance policy.
Well, he's the closest
he
thing
does
to
provide beautiful defense in the outfield, like an incredible center fielder defensively. His numbers weren't bad last year. I actually like Grisham.
Yeah.
I think the Yankees underused him, if anything. So I don't hate that they picked it up. I just think that the Yankees have left it. I don't know. I think they should have prioritized acquiring an infield bat, a third baseman, quality third baseman, before we got to the point where we're already $300 million at the threshold. I would have made that move much earlier. But the problem is we're in a tough spot now because Boris represents Bregman. And I don't know if the Yankees want to have anything to do with Boris for this next 12 months. I think the way that Boris represented Juan Soto and basically used the Yankees to up the price on the Mets. I don't know if the Yankees want to jump into bed with any Scott Boras clients right now, because the way that Boras quite unprofessionally had a lot of bullshit leaked that the Yankees aren't a family club, and then they made Soto do this, that, and the other. I think that the Yankees might not want to have anything to do with Boras, and rightfully so. So, but then he does represent some of the best clients in baseball. So there's that as well. So there's a lot of that aspect too. But you're not going to get a cheap Bregman, not with Boris.
No,
Boris would rather have them not sign at all than go undervalue, judging by the way he represented his clients last year. So again, you don't get discounts with Scott Boras. So we're in a tough spot. We are.
Maybe it's a high AAV, low years. Maybe it's something like that. Because right now I think he wants 7 for 180 or something like that. That was the rumor, which I don't think anyone's signing him for that. But if it comes down in years, maybe the Yankees decide to go over 300 this year. They could tell everybody, hey, we made a ton of money from the World Series, and if the goal is to get back there, we kind of can't penny pinch, especially when we still need to add a few positions here. Maybe for one more year they decide to go over it. Because next year they have even more money coming off the books. That's when they can go attack free agency again. Maybe they go that route. Because in 2 years, DJ's gone. Then in 3 years, and Stanton could be gone because there's a buyout there. So they have money coming off the books.
Contract is out after this year, right?
The Hicks, yeah. They have money coming off the books. So they can absolutely, maybe for one more year, they decide, not saying go 350, but maybe they go a few million over. I know how the tax works, but they could always go over if they want to.
I think they were willing to go over it because of Soto. So if you're in position to really continue to strengthen your team, just screw the fucking tax and just go for it.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I know this is already 2 weeks having happened already, but even I was just stunned hearing the offer that Hal Steinbrenner made to Juan Soto. I never in a million years would have thought he'd cross $700 million. I never would have thought that he'd cross $600 million. I really didn't think he would cross $500 million. But what it shows me is that the I mean, I'm guilty of this. I completely underestimated, what the Yankees have and are willing to spend. I'm totally I was totally wrong about that. Clearly, they have the money. And if I were the Yankees, and I think this is their disposition, I think they are in an absolute win now situation. Judge is getting older. Stanton's getting older. Garrett Cole is getting older. All the principal players are getting older. So the time to get to the World Series is now, not worrying about it a couple of years from now or 3 years from now. This window will only be open for so long. It's a quick window. So we got to do it now. The Yankees have to get to the World Series again this year, this season coming up. And you know something? I think they will get to the World Series this season coming up. So that's the attitude that they have to take. I don't necessarily know if they would not work with a client specifically because they're with Boris. I think it depends on who the player is. You know, someone like a Bregman, they might, put up with the crap that you get with when you deal with Boris for a guy like him. But if it's like a lesser player, they might be, they may not put as much energy into that. The question is, I don't know how bad they want Bregman enough that they're willing to put up with Boris and his antics.
Probably that.
I mean, what you're going to see with Bregman, with these guys, I think these guys are going to be, after January and most likely mid-February, if not early March signings. The big players, the principal players have already been taken care of. Now teams can be a little bit more selective and a little bit more patient. I feel bad for a guy like Pete Alonso. I mean, here it is. The guy played his heart out. Say that again.
Me too. I feel bad. I think he's better than the market suggests.
Yeah.
And it's now just the Mets or nothing for him. And that's why I think that the Yankees, they rushed the boat getting Goldschmidt over the line. I think they could have waited it out. Because had the Yankees signed Christian Walker or Pete Alonso, then to be honest, I wouldn't have worried about a third base bat whatsoever. We were one big bat away, and if we acquired a Christian Walker or a Pete Alonso and stuck him at first base, then we could have had Peraza play third base, and I'd be absolutely fine with it. We'd be absolutely golden. But because we didn't really address the 800 OPS, 90-plus RBIs, which we really needed to do, now we're needing to keep looking for it. And that's why I'm down on the Goldschmidt signing, not the fact that Goldschmidt is a really good player. And in fact, Spencer, you're talking about one of your favorite players around the league. Goldschmidt's been my favorite player around the league for years. For years, I've been wanting him to be playing first base.
Yeah.
I really wish the Yankees had acquired him years ago. Then I'd be jumping for joy. But at 37, coming off a down year, I was down on that move because I felt that all you needed was one big-time bat. I would have signed Christian Walker. Then you've got Peraza to play third base. And then we wouldn't have had to worry about this. We could have just chilled out. The next couple months, we could have just chilled. Just worried about a lefty reliever, and that's it. But we didn't do it. So now we have to keep looking for a quality infield bat by the name of either Lau or Baum or, you know what I'm saying, or Bregman, whatever.
With Goldschmidt, this is all I want with Goldschmidt. Give me the 25 home runs. Give me minimum 85 RBI, okay? I'll take the 100 strikeouts. I'll take what errors that may happen when he's in the field, but give me at least 25 home runs and 85 RBI. If he exceeds that, if he exceeds any of those things, that's great. That makes the Goldschmidt signing, that makes it worth it. But I think as a fan, when you see that kind of signing, these are sort of the minimum requirements that you want, as far as what the upcoming season will present. If it's anything less than that, it's going to be a real waste of time.
Yeah, there's still, like I said, I think we're all in agreement. I think one more infield signing, one more good signing.
Yeah,
and I think it's the all season is pretty much complete with a little bit of tweaking. But I think the fact that the Yankees were able to make the moves that they did so quick. It does buy them time. They're not waiting to put a complete roster together.
Yeah,
after New Year, which sometimes is what happens to some teams, and then they have to make bad contract decisions because then they fall into desperation. The Yankees are not in that spot right now. They don't have to act out of desperation. They just it's really what they want more than what they need. because we do have, we have the internal options to kind of bide us some time, whether we do wait, as much as like Donald, I'm opposed to it. But if we have to wait to see how the trade deadline irons out, I think when you get, like a Peraza, Cabrera, Vivas, if you have to use them at second base, utilize DJ to give Goldschmidt a couple days off at first, depending on how the foot is. I don't think that the Yankees are in dire straits.
No, by any stretch. No.
So
Tess, you're higher on the Goldschmidt signing than I am, and probably Rob is. Give me some of your thoughts on why you think that it's going to be the smart move.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
No, I'm talking to Tats.
Oh, okay.
Wait, which move? For
all right, that's it. Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll continue this.
Bob, I'm
another
with you.
day.
Miss that.
I'm losing track of everything now. But we do appreciate everybody tuning in today. Just remember, subscribe, hit that like button, share this out with your friends, your family, the strangers on the corner. This is the Pinstripe Chronicles, where fans become family. So with those pinstripes of pride and play hard.